So when we're looking at the ways that trauma reactions and self get connected, it really makes me start thinking about why do some people handle trauma differently than others, right? And this is something that I've always been curious about. Why are some people have horrific traumas and for whatever reason, they're able to get beyond it. They're able to kind of heal from it and they're able to do amazing things. And other people who can even have the same kind of trauma, interestingly enough, end up kind of tanking. They never can get beyond themselves. They can never really kind of rise above it. It's like the trauma gets the best of them. And I don't know that we know the answer to this question. I am certainly interested in the conversation and to really learn more about why some people do better than others as it relates to healing from overwhelming life experience. One thing I want to talk about before we get a little bit deeper into this issue of resilience is this diagram here that you're seeing in the slide. And this is an idea that I came across visually, right? This is a visual idea of the representation of parts and self. And this is one of the ways that I see this. Some clients who have horrific trauma have so many parts and so many protective parts and wounded parts that it takes up their whole system. I kind of call this the container theory. If you look on the left-hand side, it's the container is a person, right? And they're so loaded with parts. They've got a bunch of parts. They have very little access to self-energy. It's in there, but they have very little access to it because they're dominated by parts. Where other people, maybe the same trauma, maybe slightly different, have parts and exiles, protective parts and wounded parts there, but there's more space for self-energy, right? And so maybe this is one of these differences. Like the more parts we have, the more space they take up in the container and the less access someone has to self-energy. Or if certain parts take up less space, we have more access to self-energy. So this is just an idea that I like to think about in relation to that. The other thing that people talk about a lot is nature versus nurture, right? Honestly, I'll share this. This is a little weird, but I think I was born with a certain kind of temperament to heal from my trauma. I mean, don't get me wrong, I have spent a lot of money on therapy. I am a therapy lifer. I will always be in therapy. But I don't know why, but I have a certain something that is constantly driving me to heal, to better myself. I don't know what that is. Like, I think that's more temperament. I think some people are born with certain things and other people are not. I think I'm one of these people that has a certain temperament to have risen above my trauma. I have not let it get the best of me. I remember as a little kid when I was being abused, and I was saying to myself, I'm not going to let him get to me. I am not going to let him get to me. And when I was in my residency program and I read this book by Leonard Shengold called Soul Murder, I thought, that didn't happen to me. I did not let my soul get murdered by my perpetrator. What that is about, I'm not really sure. Probably when we look at nature and nurture, I am landing or sitting in that it's a combination of both, honestly. There's an it factor that some people have that we're born with in temperament, and the environment matters. I think both matter to some degree. You'll hear people say, as long as you had that one person who loved you, that one person who cared about you. So personally, I think both matter. Environment's important, but if you don't have a certain temperament, it might not be enough. If you have that certain it factor and you don't have the right environment, that might not be enough. Maybe the combination of both is the best to overcome from trauma. Who knows? But the way I think about resilience now is I've been playing around with this topic, like who rises above and who doesn't. These are some things that I have thought about, some key points that I think are relevant beyond nature and nurture that help people rise above trauma or have the capacity to heal. So number one is, can they form meaningful connections? Are they able to connect to people? Whether that's about their temperament, whether that's about the environment they grow up in, can they form meaningful connections? Another important point for me around resilience is, can they tolerate uncertainty? Uncertainty is difficult for a lot of people. Unknown and uncertainty freaks people out. I think the capacity to tolerate the unknown is a very important piece of healing. Is somebody capable or willing to learn from their moments? I think life is made up of a series of moments, and I think we have choices. What are we going to do with this moment? Are we going to learn from it? Are we going to repeat it? Or are we going to suppress it? So for me, life is made up of moments. And is the person we're working with willing or interesting to learn from their difficult moments? I can tell you in my caseload, I have certain people that don't want to do the U-turn, for example, that don't want to look at themselves, that want to stay in the blame game, and they want to blame others for what's going on with themselves instead of looking at themselves. So for me, this is a key piece. Are you willing to learn from your difficult moments? Another piece is, can you value something outside of yourself? Are you able to step outside of yourself and receive help or see somebody else's perspective? Theory of mind, really important concept, shows that people are capable of healing the more they're able to step outside of themselves and see somebody else's perspective instead of being stuck within their own. And then the last is, can somebody acknowledge their own vulnerability? We're going to talk more about what I mean by vulnerability when we look into the healing section of this course, but is somebody capable of being with their own vulnerability? That's an important question. And for me, those are some of the key principles that are connected to whether somebody has a capacity to be able to overcome overwhelming life experiences.